In our headlines on this Monday, February 23rd, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung hosts his Brazilian counterpart Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva here in Seoul for summit talks today, with particular focus on trade, technology and defense. And relevant authorities here continue to hold meetings in response to the Trump administration's pledge to maintain its tariff pressure on U.S. trade partners, despite the Supreme Court's ruling against most tariffs. Meanwhile, in North Korea, the ruling Workers' Party reportedly re-elects Kim Jong-un as its General Secretary this past weekend during an ongoing Congress that takes place every 5 years. We start today with coverage of the summit talks between South Korea and Brazil here in Seoul, where leaders of the two countries agreed to raise bilateral ties to a strategic partnership. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin starts us off.
President Lee Jae-myung welcomed Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva to the Blue House on Monday with a warm embrace, reflecting their close personal rapport. Both leaders rose from humble beginnings, having worked as child laborers. Lula's three-day state visit, his first to South Korea in 21 years in what is his third term, began Sunday at Lee's invitation. The summit, their second meeting, opened with a lavish welcoming ceremony with Lula's motorcade escorted by honor guards and a traditional Korean marching band. President Lee and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung greeted the Brazilian first couple wearing outfits in blue, green, and yellow, the colors of Brazil's national flag. The two leaders agreed to elevate South Korea and Brazil's almost 7-decade-long diplomatic ties to a strategic partnership and adopt a 4-year action plan.
또한 식량안보, 중소기업, 과학기술, 보건의료, 핵심 광물, 에너지 전환, 환경, 우주, 문화에 이르기까지 우리 양국은 광범위한 분야로 양자 협력을 제도화해 나갈 것입니다.
I am very pleased to establish this strategic partnership. The 2026 to 2029 Action Plan will serve as an important roadmap for strengthening cooperation between our two countries.
Economic cooperation was at the center of the talks. Trade between the two countries has exceeded $10 billion annually for the past 5 years, with Brazil serving as South Korea's largest trading partner and investment destination in South America. To continue this momentum, Lee and Lula reaffirmed the importance of striking a trade agreement between South Korea and the Mercosur bloc of South American countries.
저는 한국과 남미 공동시장 간 무역협정 체결을 위한 협상을 조속히 재개할 필요가 있다는 점을 설명드렸고, 룰라 대통령께서도 무역협정 체결이 기묘한 과제라는 점에 깊이 공감하셨습니다.
South Korea is Brazil's fourth largest trade partner in Asia. There remains significant untapped potential between our countries. And we agreed to explore ways to resume negotiations suspended since 2021.
The summit was followed by the signing of 10 memorandums of understanding covering trade, technology, agriculture, and transnational crime. President Lula invited President Lee to the In Defense of Democracy Summit in Spain this April, as well as to Brazil in the near future. With both leaders showing a strong will to deepen ties, a third summit between the two appears very likely. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., the Trump administration has been quick to respond to the recent Supreme Court ruling against most of its tariffs on U.S. trade partners, including South Korea. Our Oh Soo-young has the latest.
The United States says its trading partners want to keep existing trade agreements in place, even after the Supreme Court struck down President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CNN on Sunday that Washington's counterparts want to maintain previously concluded trade deals. He stressed that the court ruling only blocked tariffs imposed under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, adding that the president still has other authorities. Trump has already moved to use them. On Friday, he triggered a never-before-used Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act, imposing a 10% global tariff. 1 day later, he said the rate would rise to 15%, the maximum allowed under the law. He also said new legally permissible tariffs would be announced within months. Section 122 allows tariffs of up to 15% for 150 days to address balance of payment concerns. Any extension requires congressional approval. Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, meanwhile, allows tariffs on national security grounds and has previously been used on steel and automobiles. The administration is also eyeing Section 301 of the Trade Act, which introduces tariffs after investigations into unfair or discriminatory trade practices. In tow, the ruling Democratic Party, the government, and the Office of the President held a closed-door meeting. According to Democratic Party floor spokesperson Moon Kum-ju, participants agreed that the swift passage of the Special Act on Investment in the United States is in the national interest. They pledged to process the bill by March 9th, as agreed by both ruling and opposition parties. Officials also shared concerns that Washington could invoke Section 301 and other trade measures, and agree to refrain from hasty countermeasures.
I would say governments around the region will try to stay competitive in the U.S. market, avoid becoming the targets of the latest rounds of tariff, and position themselves as alternative manufacturing bases when supply chains shift. So you might see some quiet adjustments, incentives to attract relocated factories, closer monitoring of transshipment, and also more trade diplomacy, but not open bargaining power plays, because that is frankly not how Asian countries work, right?
Meanwhile, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer signaled that enforcement will intensify. He told media that investigations have been launched into Brazil and China under Section 301. He added that Washington will probe excess production capacity in several Asian countries, saying some produce more than they consume and distort global markets. Greer also said that the Supreme Court ruling would not affect the upcoming U.S.-China summit, scheduled for late March or early April. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, here in South Korea, relevant authorities sat down for more talks on this Monday amid fresh tensions over tariffs between the Trump administration and the U.S. Supreme Court. Our Kim Jun-hong covers these talks.
With uncertainty mounting after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed new 15% tariffs, South Korea's Industry Minister Kim Jong-un acknowledged the risks while reaffirming his commitment to friendly consultations with Washington.
Despite the U.S. Supreme Court blocking tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, Washington is expected to pursue its tariff policy through other means, adding to global trade uncertainty.
His remarks came during an emergency public-private meeting held on Monday by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources in response to Saturday's U.S. Supreme Court ruling on, quote, reciprocal tariffs and additional U.S. measures. Despite the uncertainty, Kim pledged continued engagement with Washington to uphold the bilateral tariff agreement.
We will keep a close watch on any further U.S. tariff actions and developments among other major economies while steadily preparing our response.
Experts note that such a cautious approach underscores the structural constraints Seoul faces in responding to U.S. trade actions.
Section 301 of the Trade Act, often called Super 301, is a powerful instrument that allows the president to retaliate against what he considers problematic, since Washington can act whenever it deems something is unfair. Avoiding provocation and preserving the current framework may not be ideal, but appears to be the next best option for now.
With Washington pressing ahead with alternative trade tools, Seoul now faces the challenge of managing uncertainty while preserving room for negotiation. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
North Korea's Kim Jong-un has reportedly been re-elected to head the ruling Workers' Party. Our correspondent Kim Bo-kyung covers the re-election and more.
North Korea's top leader Kim Jong-un has been unanimously reappointed as the ruling Workers' Party of Korea's General Secretary on the fourth day of the 9th Party Congress, according to the Korean Central News Agency on Monday. Under the party's regulations, the party needs to elect its General Secretary, the one to represent and lead the entire party every 5 years. The Congress hailed Kim for building revolutionary armed forces capable of responding to any threat of aggression and fully preparing for any war, saying the regime's war deterrence centering on its nuclear forces has been significantly strengthened despite severe challenges. One expert said Kim's reappointment to the position underlines how Kim successfully managed the crises that were caused by an unexpected pandemic and stabilized the regime.
After overcoming the crises, highlighted at the 8th Party Congress and achieving major results, the leadership is declaring a shift to a more stable, long-term governing system. While maintaining its stance on strengthening its nuclear capabilities, it is now placing greater emphasis on economic growth and improving living standards, aiming for new achievements not seen in previous times.
The state-run media also reported that the Congress adopted revised party rules on Sunday, though no particular details or whether the hostile two-state policy toward South Korea was formally codified.
Up to the fourth day of coverage, the key points are very few external messages, limited details about the meeting, and some party personnel changes.
As the Congress has not yet concluded, and with the party expected to adopt a decision outlining new policy directions for the next 5 years, the spokesperson added that it remains to be seen whether any messages toward the South or the United States will be issued. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the broader international front, Iran's top diplomat has shared cautious optimism about planned nuclear talks this week in Geneva with the U.S., while warning against U.S. military aggression. Our Park Gonu has details.
The U.S. and Iran are set to resume nuclear talks in Geneva on Thursday, following a previous round of negotiations that ended last week. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said in an interview with CBS on Sunday that there's a good chance of reaching a diplomatic solution on the nuclear issue that accommodates the interests of both sides. The minister warned that if the U.S. were to launch an attack, Iran has the option of targeting U.S. military bases in the region, adding that U.S. military pressure would not force Iran to make concessions. Araghchi also reiterated that uranium enrichment is Iran's sovereign right, saying the country has earned it through decades of effort and sacrifice. The upcoming talks were also confirmed on Sunday by Oman's foreign minister, whose country has been mediating indirect talks between Washington and Tehran, expressing hope for a positive push to go the extra mile toward finalizing a deal. Shortly afterward, Iranian President Massoud Pezeshkian wrote on social media that recent negotiations included the exchange of practical proposals and produced encouraging signals. However, he added that Iran continues to closely monitor U.S. actions and has made all necessary preparations for any potential scenario. The remarks come as tensions escalate, with Washington boosting its military presence near Iran and President Donald Trump warning of really bad things if no nuclear agreement is reached. Trump's warning echoed remarks made Sunday by a special envoy.
But it's curious. He's curious as to why they haven't, I don't want to use the word capitulated, but why they haven't capitulated. Why under this sort of pressure with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there.
With tensions still high and negotiations approaching, attention is now on whether the two countries can achieve a breakthrough. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
In other news now, pundits have been calling for a legal framework to promote worker empowerment amid the growing adoption of physical AI in the workplace. Now, given this reality, our Kim Do-yeon spoke to lawmakers here.
As the prospect of robots replacing human labor becomes reality with physical AI's recent rapid advancement, the political world has begun debating the subject. President Lee Jae-myung referenced the Luddites in 19th century to suggest you can't stand in the way of progress.
그 기계 파괴 운동이라고 사람들이 일자리를 뺀다고 기계 부수자 이런 운동이 있었잖아요. 근데 그 흘러오는 거대한 수레를 피할 수 없습니다. 결국 그 사회에 빨리 적응해야죠. 기술을 익히고 그걸 증기기관 기계를 통제하는, 조정하는 또는 만들어내는 수리하는 이런 기능이 또 필요하잖아요.
Consulting firm McKinsey forecasts that by 2030, 800 million jobs will be gone due to AI, and South Korea is at the heart of it, with the highest robot density in the world last year. And for a lawmaker who represents Ulsan, often known as the industrial capital of South Korea, where heavy industries and auto plants make up the city's economy, the reality is coming fast.
If we simply resist this change, the outcome is clear. Companies will move overseas, jobs will vanish, and the very foundation of Korean manufacturing will collapse, dragging the entire economy down with it.
Meanwhile, lawmaker Choi Eun-seok has proposed a soft landing bill to complement South Korea's existing AI Basic Act.
We must prioritize education and retraining. By helping our workers adapt to new, complex roles in this evolving landscape, we can ensure no one is left behind in the transition.
While at early stages of talks, lawmakers are also looking at ways to make sure everybody directly benefits from physical AI and ease the concerns over job losses.
Instead of corporate ownership, imagine a citizen-funded model where profits from robot labor are redistributed back to the people. In the long run, implementing a robot tax or automation tax will be an inevitable necessity.
Most importantly, both lawmakers call for a unified national dialogue. They see this not just as a challenge, but as an opportunity for South Korea to lead the world in balancing innovation with labor.
As the AI era arrives, we must proactively address how it will reshape our labor and daily lives. Now is the time to pool our wisdom to ensure that human value isn't lost in the age of machines.
Now, with the transition to AI seemingly inevitable, the world is watching to see if business, labor, and both sides of the aisle can come together to set a new global standard for the future. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also here on the local front, the Culture Ministry is launching 2 initiatives to nurture young talent. Under the K-Art Youth Creator Support Program, project that is, up to 3,000 artists and writers aged 39 and younger are eligible for 9 million won or some $6,200 each in support of their work in fields such as literature, visual as well as performing arts. The ministry has also launched a Youth K-Culture Global Frontier initiative to fund institutions to send young Koreans abroad to promote Korean culture. Selected institutions can receive up to 59 million won or around $41,000 to cover expenses such as airfare, accommodation and program costs for participants to some 30 countries. The 2026 Winter Olympics came to a close in Italy this past weekend, with South Korea securing its target of 3 gold medals, driven by success in short track. Our Lee Seung-jae has the highlights.
South Korea has achieved its goal at the Milan-Cortina Winter Olympics, securing 3 gold medals thanks to a strong lead push from its short track speed skating team. The country also finished the games with 4 silvers and 3 bronzes. That meets the target set by the Korean Sport and Olympic Committee, which had aimed to win at least 1 more gold than at the 2022 Beijing Winter Games, where South Korea collected 2 golds, 5 silvers, and 2 bronzes. The decisive 3rd gold came Friday night when short track skater Kim Gi-lee captured the women's 1,500-meter title, edging out teammate Chae Min-jung. Earlier that day, the men's 5,000-meter relay team added a silver medal to the tally. Once again, short track skaters carried the medal campaign. They accounted for 2 golds, 3 silvers, and 2 bronzes, proof of the sport being South Korea's most reliable Winter Olympic discipline. Kim Gi-lee stood out as the only South Korean athlete to win multiple gold medals in Milan-Cortina. On Sunday, she was named the most valuable player of the South Korean delegation.
There were many truly difficult moments, but thanks to everyone who supported me, I was able to endure them, and I will continue to grow into an even better athlete in the future.
The Korean Sport and Olympic Committee said she was voted MVP by South Korean journalists covering the games. The committee has presented the award to top-performing athletes at major multi-sport events since the 2023 Hangzhou Asian Games. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. U.S. Secret Service agents shot and killed an armed man after he breached the secured perimeter of President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Authorities say the incident happened at about 1:30 a.m. Sunday when a man drove through the resort's north gate as another vehicle was exiting. He was reportedly carrying a shotgun and a gas can. When Secret Service agents and a Palm Beach County sheriff ordered him to drop the items, he raised the shotgun into a firing position and was then shot dead. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump were at the White House in Washington at the time. Investigators have identified the intruder as 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin from North Carolina and says his family had reported him missing days earlier and believe he traveled south before obtaining the weapon. A box for the shotgun was later found inside his vehicle. The FBI is leading the investigation and says it is compiling a psychological profile, and officials say they have not determined a motive. A Mexican military operation has killed cartel leader Nemesio Oseguera, known as El Mencho, marking one of the most significant cartel takedowns in years. Mexico's defense ministry says troops engaged Oseguera in a shootout in Jalisco state on Sunday, critically wounded him, and he died during an air transfer to Mexico City. Oseguera led the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, a powerful organization that expanded into an international trafficking network and moved cocaine and fentanyl into the United States. The operation triggered immediate retaliation. Gunmen torched vehicles and blocked highways across at least 6 states. Jalisco Governor Pablo Lemus Navarro urged residents to remain indoors. The U.S. Embassy advised American citizens to shelter in place, and major airlines canceled flights to the region. Greenland Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen on Sunday rejected President Donald Trump's proposal to send a U.S. hospital ship to the Arctic territory. Trump had posted on Truth Social that, quote, many people in Greenland are sick and that a boat with medical supplies would be dispatched to take care of them. Nielsen said Greenland provides free public health care to its citizens and does not need outside medical assistance. He urged Washington to engage through dialogue rather than social media announcements. Pope Leo issued a plea for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine during his Angelus address on Sunday, marking the 4th anniversary of the Russian invasion. Speaking to thousands in St. Peter's Square, the pontiff declared that, quote, peace cannot be postponed and demanded an end to the shattering of lives and families. With casualty figures now exceeding 1.8 million across both sides since 2022, the Pope urged global leaders to translate dialogue into responsible decisions to end the destruction. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
After the weekend's mild weather, temperatures dropped rapidly today, but the bigger concern remains wildfire danger. Dry advisories continue to expand across eastern parts of Korea, so even a small spark could quickly turn into a large fire. Adding to the concern, yellow dust has covered many regions. Meanwhile, relief will arrive tomorrow morning as rain and snow move in nationwide. Inland areas of the Gyeongsangdo province could see more than 10 centimeters of heavy snowfall, but the rest of the country will see rain instead, with Jeju Island forecast to see up to 80 millimeters. Then tomorrow morning, we are waking up to freezing temperatures at -1 degree here in Seoul and Daejeon. Then by the afternoon, Seoul gets up to 6 degrees. Daegu just tops out at 5. And once the rain system moves out by Wednesday, we will wrap up the month with milder conditions. With that in mind, here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, during which we touch upon U.S. tariffs, summit talks, and more. Do stay with us.